Welcome to this week's edition of Vision Alignment, the show where we get to understand how important it is for our core values to be aligned with our company's vision. Now, our company's vision may be the company you work for, and maybe the company you work for is yourself. So understanding that vision alignment is so important is what we're talking about today, and we'll continue to talk about more. But joining us today is going to be one of the great speakers and authors that I know, and her name is Natalie Siston. Welcome, Natalie.
I'm so happy to be here, Brian.
Well, thank you for being on. I would like to just start us off real quick. If you would tell us your story.
Absolutely. So I am the founder of Small Town Leadership, which is inspired by me growing up in Republic, Ohio, population 600. Even though I've worked in the Fortune 100 and Silicon Valley and have started my own business, the lessons I learned growing up in this small town are the things that have propelled me forward in my career and in my life day after day. And when I had that light bulb moment hit me in 2016 that this platform, these things I want to speak and talk and write about are this small town leadership philosophy, everything started to make sense for me. And from that day forward, my platform was built. And you're looking at me 5 years later doing that work full time and sharing it in a big way with my very new book.
I love it. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about your book.
My book is called Let Her Out, Reclaim Who You've Always Been. And you're with me 1 week prior to launch.
Nice.
So for those who are like, oh, I'm going to go snatch that up, don't quite yet. Just wait until next Thursday, November 19th. That is the big launch day for this book. But it was inspired by finding the diaries I've kept since I was 8 years old. And I've always known I've had these boxes of diaries. They've traveled with me from the time I moved from my small town into Ohio State, my dorm, to when I moved across the country after I was a newlywed, back home to Ohio. So I've known these existed, but last year something compelled me to open them up. And as I was reading the things I wrote when I was young as 8 up till 25, I just kept thinking, like, she's the person that the world needs to see more of. Wow. And that inspired the idea for Let Her Out, Reclaim Who You've Always Been.
So you always have someone in mind when you're writing the book, when you're writing a book. Who was it that you had in mind?
I had in mind the woman who has literally and figuratively put herself at the back of the line. She is always putting everybody else's needs first, whether that be her family or her partner or her work or her community. And because of that, all of the things that she loved doing growing up or that lit her up, she doesn't do those things anymore. And so this is for the person who wants to reclaim a little bit of her, because you and I both know, Brian, that when you do the things you're passionate about and excited about, everything in life seems to make more sense, seems to be more in alignment.
Yeah. No, I agree. That makes an awful lot of sense. So, if you're writing to that person, how do you, obviously this is a writing skill. So how do you get the ideas across? I mean, you've done so much, and I appreciate everything you've done with your coaching and your writing, but in speaking as well. How do you get to a point where you're really getting engagement with people?
It's trial and error and throwing what spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. That's how this writing thing works. I've been writing since I was little, and I've always known that that's been a skill and a gift for me. So I enjoy it. So there have been times when I've written what I think is the best blog post ever to have 4 people read it, one of whhom is probably my mom and the other one is probably my sister. So, the 50% that found it out in the world. You can't
discount those.
No, you cannot discount those. So I think it's been a moment of trial and error. And there were times when, I would say something or there's that quotable soundbite. And that's the thing that people would latch onto and say, that's the thing that I want more of. And I think over time, I've been able to hone my voice to get to that place more directly, more succinctly, way more quickly. And I ask a ton of questions in my writing. So I feel like in the book, I have a section called How to Use This Book, because I am also very type A. And when I had my editorial board read it, they said, we need a guide for this, because if you just sit down to have like a Saturday afternoon read, that's probably not what this book is for. So in it, I said, I'm probably breaking all the rules of authorship, but don't binge this book. It's like, read it little by little,
like a workbook.
Really think about the questions, get out a notebook, write down your answers, read it with a friend, read it with your sister or your mom or a group of girlfriends, and take your time with it.
How did your time in Silicon Valley and the time you spent here outside of Silicon Valley, how did that prepare you for this writing?
Oh gosh. Well, it
Great
prepared me. Yeah, I know. I'm like prepared for writing. I think there's innately communicator is one of my strengths. And I think in all of the organizations that I've ever worked, one of the skills I have honed is being able to just give very clear direction, guidance, whatever it might be. I don't like to be confused. We're going to go back to that type A thing. I don't like to be confused. So I assume that other people don't like to be confused either. And so I think I've taken on this kind of chief communication / very, very concise answer person in all of these jobs. And I think that's carried over into the writing, because I don't waste words. Economy of words is a phrase that I use all the time. Usually when I'm editing, it's how many things can I cut out versus how many things can I add in. That way it's just gets to the point more clearly. And so I feel like that's a skill we can all hone in on, is how can we say as much as we need to in as few words possible with the least confusion possible.
You mentioned editing, and that was, when I wrote my book, that was one of the hardest things that I had to go through. So what was your experience?
It was interesting. So I, in earnest, started putting the book together, and I'm calling it putting it together because I had written a ton of it already in context of blogs and other things. And it was my writing was like a curation experience. Mm-hmm. So I remember distinctly May 24th, I was like, I'm done. I have my manuscript, and I printed it out and I had it in a binder, and it was 24,000 words, which, my book coach said that's enough. And then I had to go back and reread that, and it was painful, Brian. One, because there were so many gaps, there were things missing, there were stories that didn't, congeal, they didn't make sense, and so that was really the hardest part for me. And there were many days when I just avoided it. I was just like, I'm not feeling it today, so I'm not going to go into that place and do the editing. But once I really did, hone in on it, having an editorial board was huge for me. These were 7 amazing people who volunteered to read my book and give me the tough truth about it, saying, hey, these things don't make sense. I'm confused here. Hey, you need more stuff like this. They were the ones who said give me a guide of how I use this book. They were very clear to point out, if I'm a man, what should I do with this book? Because it's, titled to her. So sure. Those people were an incredible resource. And by the time I was done embedding all of their edits, the book was much longer. It was closer to 40,000 words, and it made a lot more sense. And when I actually sent it to the copy editor, he had very little to change with it. So that made me feel pretty good. Yeah.
Wow. And you're a copy editor. So there's a lot here. So a lot of different things you mentioned. For example, one thing is, how do you write to a man? How would a man take on your book?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there are 2 ways. And this is why I wrote that, how to use this book. If you are a man, here's 2 ways. 1, you can replace her with him every place you see it and read the book and go forward that way. I think a lot of the things I talk about are fairly universal, except for probably childbirth, and that won't be universal. The other is to read it from the lens of, I am a support system and an ally for the women in my life, whether that be your wife, your sister, coworkers, friends, just to read that and be able to have that experience with her to say, holy cow, how much of this stuff have you gone through? How much of this stuff have you faced in your life? And how can I be a supportive person to make sure that she is able to be let out and doesn't keep getting pushed back into the corner?
So on vision alignment, we talk a lot about how our core beliefs need to be in line with our vision. Now, what would you say is your vision? And then I'm going to ask you about your core beliefs.
My vision, and this goes back to small town leadership, is how do we make our big world feel like a small place?
Hmm.
Full stop. That was what I used as my tagline on my email signature for a very long time. I think it's how I've always shown up in the world. I'm deeply curious about people and things, and some might call that nosy, but I think that's just curiosity. But it's because I'm always trying to connect the dots. I'm always trying to connect people. I think that we inherently can all be problem solvers together. And that's what I saw growing up in a small town, is everybody had to be a different kind of problem solver in order to show up for the community. And that's why this idea of big world, smaller place, those would be my vision words.
Interesting. I love it. It's great. I mean, ever since I met you, and I've known there was something about you that I just loved. And it's the small town aspect of you and how I associate with that, and the relationships as well. So that has been one of the greatest things. So I appreciate you for that. Now, talk to me about core beliefs. So your core strength and what it is you really want to show the world that this is you. And obviously, the small town leadership is part of that. But how else would you say that your core beliefs are important when it comes to your vision?
I think that a core belief, and I adopted this as a word in 2019, was ambition. And I feel like for women, that word often gets a really bad rap. It's like, oh, that means that you aren't putting other people first and you're pushy, and maybe words that, we're not going to say here because we want to keep this PG. But I really embraced that word in 2019 because I realized I have so much capacity to create, capacity to give, capacity to connect. And I wasn't always fully leaning into that because of all the stories I told myself, over a period of time of being pushed back in the corner. Mm-hmm. And so when I stepped forward and said, no, I'm just going to step into the fact that I've got capacity and capability, and I'm going to just go and put my foot on that gas pedal and see how far we can go. That's what's driving me forward on a personal level. It's driving me forward on a professional level. And it's also keeping me very open-minded. We're sitting in November and many business owners would have their 2021 plan baked out. And I don't, because I know there's something big around the corner. And I know this book is part of that, but I don't want to predetermine it. I believe that it'll unfold as it should. So it's connecting that ambition to this vision and just every day working toward both of those things.
Yeah, that's great. Now, I think about ambition and how important that is, but I also think about what you said. I mean, because in the working world, yes, when females sometimes come across as ambitious or they come across as aggressive, that is not always perceived in a favorable light. So, that is, I think that's very important for us all to understand how it shouldn't really matter.
Exactly. Right? It shouldn't. And it takes people like me talking to you to say, I'm ambitious and I'm proud of it. And someone to recognize that doesn't mean I'm not other things in my life. It doesn't mean I'm not a good wife. It doesn't mean I'm not a good mother. It doesn't mean I'm not a good daughter. It just means that I've got capacity for all of this, and let me be.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So I guess tell me if there are a few things that you can help us out with. So, for example, we have listeners on. And if the listeners would, if they're listening live, put a hashtag live. If you're listening to this on replay, put a hashtag replay. But then also do me a favor and let me know where you're coming in from. And if you have any questions for Natalie, please fire them up. I would love to have you do that. So that's important. Now, Natalie, I've got to ask, because there are some typical questions we ask here on Vision Alignment. What would you say is the biggest factor in your success?
I think it's that I am always open and curious, and that hasn't always been the case. There have been many times in my life where I've been judgmental and limited in my beliefs and thinking, but opening up to this idea of curiosity has meant that I've been willing to roll up my sleeves, learn things, do things, be with people in a very, very, different way. And that people resonate with that. I often tell people that it took me to go to coaching school and do the own work on myself for then people to want to hire me to do that work with them, because people are magnetically attracted to the thing that they want to do and be. And I think now that I'm saying things more boldly in the world, and I'm claiming my ambition, and I'm claiming my capacity, and all of these things, that's has attracted people to me recently. And I say that not from an egotistical place, but a place of like, how can we all tap into that version of ourselves? And that's actually what I work with a lot of my clients on, is let's get to the core of you. Like, I don't care about your relationships. I don't care about your job. Like, I want you to feel good about you. Then it'll all make sense. All the dominoes will fall into places they should.
Is there something that you keep coming back to day after day, that there, maybe it's week after week, that you keep tactic or practice that you keep coming back to that helps you to stay in alignment?
Yeah, I feel like I ebb and flow. So in 2019, my practice was every month at the end of the month, I looked back and I took stock of that month. So I made sure I had listed all of the speaking engagements I did, all of the coaching clients I worked with, all of the content that I created, the connections I made. So I used to write down every day. If, I connected with 3 people on LinkedIn, I would write down their names in a journal. So that was what I did in 2019. I think moving into 2020, things have just felt crazy. So I haven't done that, but that's been the best practice I've ever done. And that just, it reminds me of 2 things. It reminds me of capacity, and it reminds me of connection, and it all goes hand in hand.
And capacity, connection, and ambition.
That's right. Right. It all levels up. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all in line. That's great. But you didn't even do that on purpose, did you?
I did not. No, I did not. But I just handed that one right to you.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you. So tell me about you talked a little bit about your what am I going to say? You're having trouble finding the words right now. So you talked a little bit about your key tactics, but there's also the aspect of things you use to keep you aligned. How do you stay aligned? Maybe it's just that where you just said, the clarity, the ambition, and all that. So is there something else that helps to keep you aligned?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple practices. So one is I'm an avid fitness person. So days that I move my body, I feel better and I can be in better alignment. So that's been something that's been important to me for a very long time. And I can tell on days when I don't, that's probably why I'm in a bit of a funk. And then this year I have dug very, very deeply and actually work very closely with an organization called Positive Intelligence. And it's all around mental fitness. So as much as I enjoy physical fitness, mental fitness is probably equally, if not more important for all of us, because it's how do we have our neural pathways doing the right things, connecting the right dots. And so many of us end up in our fight and flight space in our brain. We're stressed out all the time, and we truly can reprogram our brain. So I've been working since January on this personally, and it's small practices every day. It's micro habits that help you truly connect to the sense that you're in. So you might consider it a form of mindfulness, but this practice has been truly transformational. I credit it for my ability to do many of the things I've done this year.
Really?
Yeah.
And what is it called again?
Positive Intelligence. And it's the concept of mental fitness. It was originally a book written by Shirzad Chamine, who is a Stanford lecturer and master coach, and he has an engineering background. He's been very interested in how we can truly rewire our brains, but he also has a bit of kind of the psychology and coach aspect to him. So it's fascinating for me because I tend to be a left brain thinker and want to have the orderly way of doing things. When you step into a profession like coach, it's very fluid. It's very kind of woo-woo in a lot of ways. And this practice, actually, when it showed up in my life, I was like, this is what I've been missing the whole time, because there is a science to this, and there is there are regimented things that you can do, and they don't feel so regimented after a while. But Shirzad has turned into a great mentor, and I work with their organization, and I'm helping them build this in the world right now too.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how do you, you said so much there. I wanted to talk a little bit about your ability to help people that are maybe on the fence. You know, they're thinking about, you know, maybe I should get a coach, but I'm not sure. You know, I don't really have money for it. You know, I'm not sure what they're going to do. What are they going to do? They're going to make me do this stuff that I already know that I need to do. You know, what is it? So talk to people a little bit about that coaching aspect and talk them off the fence, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, I would say if there's somebody here who's hesitating hiring a coach because they just don't know enough, like, first of all, just go do your homework. There, you know, throw a rock and hit a coach anymore. I feel like it's proliferating a lot. And you have to find the person who resonates with you. That's what I was saying a minute ago, that when I started my coaching practice 4 years ago, I'm sure that I was not attracting clients the way I am now because I was unsure of myself as a coach, as a professional. So step forward to work with the person who's aligning to what you want to be. So it's almost like see the thing in that person that you're hoping to get, because some of that will wear off. But coaching, so this journey all started for me because I hired a coach. So in 2015, I was feeling what I call meh. It's a very technical term. I was doing great in my career, but I knew there was more, and I hired a coach, and we worked together for 6 months. And the thing I would say about that duration is that, yes, I did get to the end of the 6 months and have a lot more clarity. I set goals and I had action steps in motion. But truly, every day I'm looking back and thanking Michelle for our time together, because every single day, I feel like I'm working toward things that we talked about 5 years ago. So the thing to know about coaching is it is not an overnight thing. Like, you're not going to hire a coach, have your first session, the next day wake up and be like, woohoo. I mean, for some people, perhaps, but for most people, this is a long game. So if you're someone who is ready to invest in yourself and you're ready to play the long game, then coaching is the thing that would help you tremendously. But if you're looking for the quick fix, if you're looking for the overnight thing, no, coaching is not for you.
Right, right. And that's very important for us all to understand that, you know, coaching is not an overnight thing. So I've been working with a coach for, you know, almost 3 years now, and he's been very, very helpful. I don't know where I'd be without him, honestly. And it's been phenomenal. So to see the growth that I have in myself and the belief that I have now in myself, I'm lost for words, because there's so much value in it, having a coach.
And I think we all just underestimate our potential. And the coach is the person who can shine a light on your potential in a way that maybe no one else has, no boss has, no spouse has, no friend has. I mean, that's the beautiful part about being a coach, is I walk in as this third party, neutral observer / helper. I am detached from the outcomes. That it was rule number 1 that I learned in coaching school. It was like, you can go and deliver the best coaching session of your life, or maybe the most terrible coaching session of your life. And the outcome that happens with that client, you are not connected to that. And it's very hard to do that, especially when you've worked in business, because you're attached to every outcome. Like, literally the paycheck you take home oftentimes is connected to that. But coaching, it's very different. It's like, no, go ahead and pay me this investment, and you go do all the work.
Yeah. Do you find that most of your people that you're coaching, are they receptive to that, or is there an instance where, you know, they are like, hey, wait a minute, that's not what I signed up for? Or
I have a really healthy balance with my clients. So I work with a lot of middle level and C-level managers, and because I have 20 years of corporate experience, I'm not going to hide that. So I have managed a lot of people. I have watched other people and coached other people who manage people. So I have a really nice balance with my clients of, yes, we coach hard and they go deep. But if I see them like getting close to the edge of a ledge, and I have some insight based on what I've experienced, I will bring that to them, you know. And it's because it's not fair to sit there and watch someone flounder when you truly could throw them the life ring. Sometimes you need to let them totally float around, but there are more times than not, I'm finding myself truly stepping into that space of, hey, I have some experience. Are you interested in my perspective? And then mean, that's kind of like coaching rule number one is you have to get their permission to offer that level of advice or insight. And once that agreement is there, the door's open. But it's definitely a balance. I think coaching is maturing a lot too. And people don't hire you to just sit there and just ask profound questions all day. It's like, no, we actually want you to bring some value too. So it's mostly coach, but there's a little bit of a consultant hat. There's a little bit of a trainer hat on as well.
And you would call yourself a life coach?
I call myself a leadership coach more so than life coach, but here's the thing. Here's a secret, Brian. It's all life coaching. You know, I've had organizations hire me to coach their teams, and you know, I'm called the leadership coach or the executive coach or whatever. But at the end of the day, what happens between me and that client is usually 85% about life coaching. Well, because it goes back to that concept. We have to get right with ourselves before we can get right with our work or our colleagues, our direct reports.
So that's funny because I just read an article about self-awareness and how self-awareness is also sometimes we get attached to the results when it's not about the results. It's about our who we are and our growth and all of that, but it's not about the results. So you were saying this earlier, the results, it made me think of that. So that's very, very true.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like in my previous corporate job, it was when you talk about performance management, it was, 30% about the result, but then also the how it got done, because you could bulldoze people all day long to get your accomplishment made, but you left 10 dead bodies in the wake. Right. So I think that many organizations are coming around the fact that character matters, the how matters, because at the end of the day, that's what people feel and experience, not that you crushed your goal, but that you crushed those 10 people on your way to it. So yeah, let's kind of get away from that mode.
I know some people in sales. I mean, they're definitely, they leave a lot of stuff in their wake. But they don't always come out the other end with a personality that, or a likable disposition that you would want to be around that person. So that's a hard thing to deal with at times.
It absolutely is. And I am coaching in that space right now with some of the leaders I'm working with. And it's been amazing, the transformation they can make in a 3 or 6 month period of time to say, wow, like results matter. But now that I'm actually asking my team what motivates them and how they can help solve problems, the fear goes away about the dashboard and the metrics, because they know they'll just sort of take care of themselves if you're treating people the right way, giving them the right amount of freedom.
Wow. I apologize. We've gotten down the coaching path, but I want to go back to the book and just let people know how to get to the book and where we can find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So next Thursday is the day that you can go to letherout.com and get your copy. If you're excited and want in on the notices, go to letherout.com, join the launch crew is what it says. And those people will get a series of emails over the course of the next week just to let them know what's coming their way and how to be one of the very, very first people to have a copy of that book that's over my shoulder in their hands.
Nice. That must be such a great feeling to hold that book.
It is. I think the social media post that's going out today is the unboxing video from when I got these yesterday. So my children watch the unboxing videos all the time. So when my social media coordinator said, yeah, you should definitely do an unboxing video, I was like, I know how those go. There's no Barbie in that box, but there's a book, baby. That's what's in there.
Oh, yeah. The book, baby.
That's right.
Awesome. So tell us, how else can we get a hold of you if we want to talk further about coaching or anything else?
Yeah, I'm very easy to find. Natalie Siston in all the places. I tend to be most heavily on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I don't do the Twitter. And then my book website, letherout.com, and then my company website, smalltownleadership.com.
Awesome. Is there any final words you want to leave our audience with?
I just appreciate being here, Brian. I mean, I feel like kindred spirits from the first time we met. There has been a connection, and I'm just excited that we had a chance to be together today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks. Bye.